لا تتتب وفيرك كبرعك ألما تنبعي كتفيني لهاريرك
سلام تخطاتلتنا channel كما يكنيكم كما يتخونوا سناي كتكوننا وتر منيوتيو لومي حنتا زيا قداسي نخلنا دما تدلينا discussion زتي amoung من سياتنا هنري زناي لوم فيديو نتصبرا كاب ديبيت قبر ووي كاب استقبر نعوي ريفلكت خقبر كفتن تقند ديسكاشن ولا قا نايم عرباويان كت انت هنا نحنا ابتعد معرباو عالم ننبر نزلنا ولا اب افريقيا وانت هنا معرباو بهلن لمدن عبص الواصل زلو ابو خيبص احنا خلنا ان تمهرنا له كابتن ساتهم زخدو زلو غعزو كل جينا كيبت حنا خلو كنمهار انتي زباله زراربالو سمارت سب بالحساب مالتيو كاب جيغو يمهار يبلو a wise person لبام سبجن كاب جيغا خالوت يمهار يبلو سلازي لبامات نخون كوردنا كي وردنا خلو كابنا كالوت تمكرو كنمهار ادل سلا نركب زلنا ابزا فيديو بحادنا رانا ترانزليت ناقبر كلكم كخير يعني very very interesting كم مجمريا لايك ابوانا بكالوت نخط باسح كم زعينتو دليل تخوينكم كفيدباك ابوني ناترجمكم انالايز ناغبرنا يمكن كيدنا بحدي سناي مكتتال كوننا ناتمحصنكم let's go
settle right
No.
okay do you
Go ahead. Say what you gotta say.
okay do you think we're doing a good job with marriage nowadays and dating in general do you think
انتي لو حتيتوالو مجمريا ستل كتقبر تدليدي ستل مالتي حنتقال تدليو زنبرت ودي بملكعو بآتاوي باكايدو بتحساسبو ببرسوناليتي ناتو كل تسات تدليو ودي كي رخبت قال كاباتو كابوز ودل زلو ورق وحيتات ودي ترغيبا مسو حدار كتقبر فقر كتقبر تخلدو نزبل حتو نو انا تزدليو رق وحيتات كي تمال علي كلن كي تمال علي ستل كتقبراي دليني ياتولو زلن بارجي كردافتنا very important نساتن كا very sharp زخون حتوتات كحتاين ديسكاس كقبروا اليوم نعوكن رينا
people are finding what they want in life
No.
okay and would you agree that in foreign countries maybe not necessarily wherever you're from but like in other places people marry much more and they stay married for much longer compared to how we do it here
Yes.
okay so wouldn't you
انتي بلالو حضارات ابز معبو العالم ويكا اب امريكا اوروبا نزلنا مالتيو حضاراتنا صبق كم زي اللي بخلتي وجن صبق حضار كم زي اللي صبق حضارات يقوان فنا خم زلو تسمام عليلوا اوي سمام على تحقيو امخم انت خوينو منال بات كون دخون كابتناتنا وصاياب كالوت بحالتات كيدنا ننوي حضاراتنا يزغبرو حزبتات كم حبرتسبنا ندحريت مالتيو كم دحريت مالتي اب افريقيا غيتكا اب هاغاراتنا مالتيو كم اتوم سبات نخن كاب اتوم كنمهارنا اتوم بحريات كنتمتن كابو كنعزبن ك صبق داي يمسلكن بلونا له اوكي خايلن ولو انا قصر كنريين
also potentially agree that maybe the way that we're doing things is a little bit fucked up
Definitely.
okay and so if I were to ask you what do you think is the largest difference between how we do things here and how they do it in those countries where it works
What's the difference?
انتي لو حتيتوانا على حجنا حنت مالتيو اوكي ابزن قبر زلنا صقم كم زلو ردويو اسكمك حتى كي ابتن كالوت هاجرات حضارات بخميت امت ويخونو ويكات اب كالوت هاجرات نابنه تبعدنا زلو حضارات كابز ابز زلو حضاراتي بمنتاي فلو يخوني كتحاسبي وي ناتكي تعزبت انتي مسد يلو حتيتوالو كنسمعين حج
Well, I'm Italian, so one of the things that I've noticed in Italy is that once you're married, to get divorced is basically unthinkable.
Why?
Because of what I mentioned before, and going back to that, once you marry someone and you make those vows, not only marriage is a safety net, but you're also promising to work things out with that person. So the belief in like divorcing doesn't come as easy as here, where it's just
نزا فيديو تريد اللخا نزا فيديو تريد زلخم كتعبيو كتلوطو نابزلا على درجة كتكودو خم تدليو يردان له that's why نزا تريد زلخم انبار نابتقعزو نابتزلا على درجة معباي التزبلسي نابزلا على درجة كحقزوكم زخل انتولو دما ولقاو كلاساتيو سدما ناب ستوك ماركت بقطبة نخطعبيو ناب بيزنس كتاتو تدليهم أونلاين بيزنس كمون أبزوان زدليكم كلتات ناي كمبيوتر ناي قوانقوا كمون ناي إيريتين كتو مهارو تدليهم بزح كورسات لنا أبزوان زما ديسكاونت كيرنا سلزلنا نخد كمولو بتعتنا يعدمكم قربت الليك مال سالكمي because it's a very very interesting.
You see what I'm saying?
So when you're living in a foreign country, when they get married, they're not just marrying the person. Families.
What I'm saying?
So when you're living in a foreign country, when they get married, they're not just marrying the person. Families are coming together. You have a whole social responsibility. It's not just me and you.
That person. So the belief in like the and you make those vows. Not going back to that. Once you marry someone and you make those vows, not only marriage is a safety net, but you're also promising to work things out with that person. So the
انتايلاتهم أنا طلياناويت سلازخونكو ناي حدار ناي طليان كنغرا كابتي أب طليان أبنا تبللا سما أمريكا مزلو حدار اندحر تغيروز ودن قالن حدار غيروم مبصعان تاتيوم قال كيدان اندحر غيروم حدار بفصم زفرس نغر هيكونن يلاتو كمزا أبزا عدنا بعد أمريكا ويكابزن أزيل معرباين هجرات زلوا ذي كونس تحضارات نقص على النت اتزعت هو كيدان اتزقبرو على كيدان ننوع زقص العمايو تحضار دماكينة كل يوم ناب كوميونيتي ناب حدا ناب حبرة سب ناب كال علامان كال نكال كتشبز تبقى سيو زعينتي يمكن سمعينا very very interesting زخانة لك كم تنادنا بهالمالتي.
Believe in like divorcing doesn't come as easy as here, where it's just like, well, let's just get divorced.
It's not,
you know.
أتي حسابنا يفتح دما بفصل ما بحنقول كابغ اللي لزمت أيقونة نبزياتهم حبر هجراتي لاتو. لذي بنتقارو عبانا زخونة نيشتي نجر let's divorce نفتح فتح زبلك على تمت أبتك هالوت حبرات سبتهم من النوع زغوت لكن فتح زبال بغ اللي لزمت أيقونة ولا لا.
And it's basically like people get married to get divorced here. Like that is the goal. You see.
أبزع برد زبنا ناقن قال سباز زمرعو نكفاتو إلهم يم زمرعو إلا. It's crazy.
What I'm saying.
So when you're living in a foreign country, when they get married, they're not just marrying the person. Families are coming together. You have a whole social responsibility. It's not just me and you.
It's a community thing.
It's a community thing here.
انتايبلو لو كلتيوم أبكالو تاجرات حدار مالت مرعى مالت نيودون قالن مرخاب رايكونن كلته حبرة سب كلته هزبي كلته عالت يوم زراقبو سلازي ناي كوميونيتي ركب دامبر ناي كلته سبات رايكونن لك عبالنا تتباليسنا ندا قالن ندا ودن كلته منال با زي فالو تسمو زمدنا زي نبرم حد كلته حبرة سب يزكب ويكا كلته عدي وي كلته عالت وي كلته سدرا بيتات ينز تحقاقفا سلازي تحدار أمونغو كلته متصعم تترايدي كونس أمونغو كلته سدرا بيتات يزخون. Very very interesting concept. Abs the gagin komai hasabani.
Everything is about how I feel and what I want and my standards.
Right.
Guess what? Over there,
Personal
they don't talk
gain.
about standards. You know, we asked everyone here what they wanted out of a marriage, and people are talking about we want to grow together, we want to do this. You go to foreign countries, they don't talk about those concepts. They don't want to talk about that. Take.
كمدما أبز معبول عالم كاب حدار انتهى خات دللي قال انتهى الكلام نفس وقت كسب ناتو تثبيتات ناتو ستاندرد وكاد بيوم نقرات نسون تايد اللي بزعبة نفس خاطر عايزو حسب أبتن كالوت هقرات كم عدنا انت غيت كات حدارات قال ملقن كوما يكون أنت تحساس باناتو فليز بلي تدليتات ناتو من هتحساس بوم.
Care the kids, take care of me, and make sure that you don't stain our family name, and then that's pretty much set, right? And divorce is not even a concept. These people settle. It's like their standards are very reasonable and they're very at a good place. And you know what? They end up married and they end up finding somebody that works for them. I think out here people say they won't settle, but the things that they won't settle on aren't even important to making a marriage last. Well, like, what do you guys think? Like, I was interested in hearing what people were saying, like what I bring to the table long term, but none of you really mentioned the things that really matter to making something work long term. Nobody mentioned.
توساخي مبزعتوا أبز معبول عالم كنرخ لنا صوت المقبار أنس نزيتات هيدلن يزن يزدل نبلو إزياتهم نتحدار نكسال نزلوا حدار أمهناز أبركتون يبلو من سلزي مبزعتوا ديبيت نقبر لوين كاتعلو نتبتات أبزي ساتهم أوروبا حبرات أب أمريكان أبزي معرباين هجرات زنبرو بهلنا توم يزن سبارو سلزي إزتي نحنا نحسبون نجاراتي ኣድላይነት የብሉ ንሓደ ቀጻልነት ዘለዎ ሓዳር ንኽትነብር እናበሉ ይገልጽዎ ኣለዉ ማለት እዩ
responsibility. Nobody mentioned duty, right? Nobody mentioned just the idea of labor. You know, so I think people have these unrealistic expectations when it comes to long-term projects, right? And they think it's, you know, going to be cool and we're going to love each other and there's going to be lots of emotions and spiritualness and all this other stuff. The truth is, it's a lot of work. Go ask people who've been together for a long time.
መብዛሕትኡ ብዛዕባ ፍቕሪ ትፅቢታት ናይ ሰባት ብፍላይ ኣብዚ ምዕራብ ዓለም ይብሉ ኣለዉ ዝንቡዕ እዩ ትፅቢታት ናቶም ኩሉ ሓጎስ ፍቕሪ ገለመለ ሮማንቲክ ነገራት ጥራይ እዩ ሓዳር ማለት ግን ብርቱዕ ዝኾነ ስራሕ ሓላፍነት ፃዕሪ ዘድልዮ ከቢድ ብድሆ ዘለዎ ምዃኑ ኣይርድኣናን እዩ እዚ ድማ እዩ እቲ ንኣሽቱ ነገራት ነቲ ሓዳራት ዘብርሶ ስለዚ ናይ ብሓቂ ንነዊሕ ዝቕፅል ሓዳር ዘለዎም ሰባት ብርቱዕ ስራሕ ብሓጎስን በቃ ቀብዘርዘር ዘለዎ ህይወት ጥራይ መዓልታዊ ንኽሕልፍ ዘይኮነስ ኣብ ሎሚ ተርሚ ሓጎስ ክህልዎም እዩ ኩሉ ግዜ ግን ሕጉስ ህይወት ኣለዎም ማለት ኣይኮነን
Yo, it's work. The wedding day is wonderful. After that, every day you wake up, the kids are crying. You don't get to sleep for days. You guys got all these bills piling up. People got to take second jobs. She's going through fucking, the after effects of pregnancies. There's all kinds of complications. It's a lot of labor. So when people come here and they say they're never going to settle, I already feel like when you're coming at this whole idea of marriage, especially on the things that you say you won't settle on, I'm like, they're not important to having a good and long, prosperous marriage. You know, people talk about, I want to be in love with my husband, but people get divorced. You know what they never mention? Love. Because they still love each other. It had nothing to do with why they get divorced. They get
طيب ላሎ ብዙሕ ግዜ እቲ ንሕና ስታንዳርድ ኢልና ንቆፅሮ ወይ ኣነ ዝን የድልየኒ ንብሎ ንቀጻልነት ዘለዎ ሓዳር ክሳብ ክንዱ ኣገዳስነት የብሉን ልዕሊኡ ድማ እንታይ ይብላ ኣሎ ፍቕሪ ኣገዳስነት ኣለዋ ከፍቅረኒ ኣሎ ከፍቅረለኒ ንብል ዝፋትሑ ሰባት ግን ናይ ፍቕሪ ፀገም ጥራይ ኣይኮነን ዘፋትሖም ይብላ ኣሎ ዘገርም ኢኻ መብዛሕትኡ ግዜ ሰብ እናተፋቐረ ገለገለ ካልእ ፀገማት የፋትሑ ናይ ገንዘብ ድዩ ናይ ካልእ ሽግራት ድዩ ናይ ዝሙት ድዩ ካብ ሓዳር ወፃኢ ዝሙት ዝግበር ድዩ እቲ ፍቕሪ ኣብ ቦቱ ከሎ ካልኦት ነጥብታት እውን ከፋትሕዎ ከም ዝኽእሉ ኣብ ግዜ ፍትሕ ድማ ብዛዕባ ፍቕሪ ዝበሃል ቃል ኣይግለፅን እዩ ይብል ማለት እዩ
divorced for financial reasons, right? They get divorced maybe sometimes because of infidelity, because you know what, I don't want to be with that person. But love is never the thing. So I just think it's interesting that the things you guys need aren't the reason that people get divorced and aren't the things that keep people staying together for a long time.
That's
Yo,
awesome.
no pun intended,
Wow.
but Abba is preaching.
Yeah, I feel that opens up a mind.
Very true.
And I'm just gonna say one last thing is like, a lot of you are young here, so for me, like I don't even fault it. I think hopefully you guys learn this as you grow older, but you start to realize all these romantic notions and all this other stuff is really not that important. You guys got to understand what it means to, it's just not fun. You know what I'm saying? People, you describe them, they've been together for 34 years. They don't look at each other and go like, this is fun. They're like, I like being around you.
Not true. I've met people who have been together for 50 years and still hold hands and are super cute. I was a nurse and I had patients that were 80 years old. And I'm like, how have you been together for 50 years? Like, what's the secret?
You want to know why?
Why?
Because the women were different back then.
Yep, way different.
እንታይ ይብሉ ኣሎ መሲሉካ ብሓፈሻ ብዛዕባ ሓዳር ዘለና ርክብ ካብቲ ዘረባናቱ መብዛሕትአን ደቂ ኣንስትዮ እንታይ ኢለን እዚ ናይ ብሓቂ ኣእምሮኻ ዝኸፍት ኣብ ተራ ዘረባ ደይትሰምዖ ኣብ ዝኾነ ቦታ ደይስማዕ ዓይነት ዲስካሽን ኢለን ብምቕፃል ድማ እቲ ንሓዳራት ንቀፃልነት ሓዳር ክርዳእና ዘሎ ፎኩስ ከምዚ ሮማንቲክ ገለመለ ነገር ጥራይ ከይመስለና ከቢድ ስራሕን ብርቱዕ ኮሚትመንት ዘለዎም እዮም 30 ዓመት 20 ዓመት ብሓደ ዝቕመጡ ሰባት ኩሉ ግዜ ከምዚ ፍሉይ ፍቕሪ ዘለዎም ገለ ከይመስለና ብሓደ ኩሉ ናይ ሓድሕዶም ህላወ ጥራይ ኣዝዩ ዘገድሶም ካብኡ ንላዕሊ ድማ ዘይምነዩ ብምዃን ጥራይ ብምባል ይገልፅዎ ማለት እዩ ቨሪ ቨሪ ኢንትረስቲንግ ድሕሪኡ ቀፂሉ ስለምንታይ ናይ ሎሚ ሓንቲ ካባተን ኣብታ ንሰርሓሉ ናይ ነርሲን ቦታ ብዙሓት ን30 ዓመት 40 ዓመት ዝተቐመጡ ሰባት ኣለው ብምባል ገሊፃ ስለዚ እንታይ እቲ ምስጢር ምስ በለት ወዲ እቲ ምስጢር ክትፈልጥዮ ትደሊ ዶ ኢልዋ ንሱ ድማ ኣዋልድ ናይ ቀደም ካብ ናይ ሎሚ ስለ ዝፍለያ ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ናይ ቀደም ካብ ናይ ሎሚ ስለ ዝፍለያ እዚኣ ናይ ምፍራድ ኣይኮነትን ግን ንመሃር እስከ ክንመሃረሉ ኢና ዝኾነ ሪኣክሽን ከሃብና ማለት እዩ
I'm gonna keep it a stack with you. A lot of women want to get married, but they don't want to be wives. Remember, and an example of that, who initiates the divorces? Who breaks up the families? It's the woman, man. Like the statistical data is there. Like men will always try to make a marriage work, but it's the women that leave.
Yeah, after he went and fucked 1,000 other women.
But back then, women were willing to put up with a lot.
They were.
Right now,
እንታይ ኢሉ ተንደቂ ኣንስትዮ ናይ ቀደም ከምኡ ስለ ዘይነበራ ኢለን ንሳተን ከዓ of course ግዜ ተغይሩ እዩ ቀደም ኣይኮነን ኢለና ኣሎ ንሱ ድማ በመቐፃል ኦኬ ግዜ ተغይሩ ኣሎ ግዜ እንተተغይሩ እቲ ኩነታት ደቂ ኣንስትዮሲ ትራዲሽናል ወይ ከም ናይ ቀደም ባህላዊ ሰብኣይ ይደልያ ንሳተን ግን ባህላውያን ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ከም ቀደም ኣይኮናን ኢላቶም ግዜ ስለ ዝተغየረ ኢለኖ እምበኣር ግዜ እንተተغይሩ እቶም ኣወዳትን ክቕየሩ ከም ዝኽእሉ ምሕሳብ የድሊ ኢልወን ሽዑ እተን ናይ ቀደም ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ኢሉ ገለን ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ምስ ገለፀ of course ናይ ሎሚ ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ዘይፃወራ ብዙሓት ኣወዳት ምስ ብዙሓት ኣዋልድን ገለን ክዝሙን ክዞሩን ስለ ዝደልዩ ዓይነይቱ ጓል እያ ምሶ ንዑታት ተፃዊራ ክትከይድ ትኽእል ናይ ቀደም ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ተፃዊረን ይኸዳ ነይረን ሎሚ ግን ንዑ ክትፃወረካ ትኽእል ጓል ክትህሉ ኢልካ ይትሕሰብ ኢለና ኣለዋ ማለት እዩ
now women are not.
They're not.
My
No,
grandparents
that's-
have been married since they were 17.
Yeah.
My grandpa had a whole other kid with another woman, and she still stuck by him. Why? Because she was willing to put up with it. Nowadays, women are not willing to put up with, with anything.
Let me ask you, was it a good environment for your parents for the most part?
For my grandparents?
No, for your parents to live underneath your grandparents.
Oh, probably not.
Why do you say probably not?
Why? Because of that's infidelity, that's fighting, that's you're seeing. Why is my mom divorced now? Why? Because look what she grew up to.
Or maybe I don't know your
No,
mom
no,
personally,
go ahead,
but
go ahead.
maybe your mom decided I'm going to prioritize me over the family. And you know what? When you raise a kid in a divorced household and you prioritize your sense of happiness first, what ends up happening is that the kid suffers the brunt of that negative energy and that choice that you make. So when I say this, is like your grandparents were like family unit's the most important thing. I must make this work, even though I may not be completely content. I understand where
እንታይ ይብሉ ኣለዉ ናይ ቀደም ሰባት ንኣብነት ሓንቲ ስድራይሲ ደቂ ኣባ ሓጎታተይ ማለት እዩ ደቂ 17 ዓመት ከለዉ ተመርዕዮም ኣብ መንጎ ድማ ኣባ ሓጎይ ካብ ካልእ ሰበይቲ ካልእ ቆልዓ ወሊዱ ዓባየይ ነዚ ተፃዊራየ ትኸይድ ነይራ ኣደይ ግን ነዚ ክትገብሮ ይደለየትን ዳትስዋይ ድማ ተፋቲሓ ኢላ ንሱ ድማ ምናልባት እዚ ብዙሕ ነገር ብዛዕባ ስድራኻ ክዛረባ ይክእል እየ ግን ምናልባት ኣደይኺ ናታ ንዓይ ዝጥዕመኒ ጥራይ ኢላ ነቶም ስድራ ዝጥዕሞም ጥራይ ኣይወሰነትን ክትከውን ትኽእል እያ ምክንያቱ ሓዳር ምስ ኣለዎ ሂወት ምስ ኣለወ ናትካ ድሌታት ጥራይ ዘይኮነስ ናይቶም ቆልዑ ኣቦን ኣደን ዘለዎ ሓዳር ክህልዎም ፅቡቅ ስለ ዝኾነ
we're aspiring to something bigger, which is our sense of community. I'm not going to break that up because you did some that I thought was wrong. So you get down to your parents' generation. This is the boomer generation, the highest divorce rates we've ever seen. And now everything's about me. They go to divorce courts. Where's your assets? Where's your money? They don't bring up love during that whole period. They say, I want everything that you fucking got. Love never comes in, right? So then you get to this generation and they just completely throw that out. And I think one thing that the West, and I think in Western countries, we think about a lot is like me. It's always about me. And not recognizing when you marry, it's about a community. So your desires sometimes have to be a bit on the back burner, and you have to understand you are sacrificing for something larger.
Exactly.
Well said.
Really quickly, just a quick question. So do you feel like also men think about me when they sleep with another woman knowing they have a family? Just a question.
This is what I would say. When you come into a marriage, you have to ask, is everyone doing their duty and their responsibility? Is he bringing home the bread? Is he taking care of the bills? Do you guys all have a roof over your head? Does he handle almost all the large responsibilities? If he does, he's done his part. In that same token, you as a wife, have you been supportive? Have you created and fostered a home where when he comes to, it's not stress and you don't just come home?
So እንታይ ኢሉ ብሓፈሻ ናይ ሕጂ ዘበን ዘሎ ጀነሬሽን ወይ ወለዶ ንዓይ ጥራይ እዩ ዝብል እዚ ድማ እቲ ዝዓበየ ፀገምናትና ኢሉ ሽዑ እንታይ ኢሉ ሓቲታቶ ብሕፅር ዝበለ ማለት እዩ እምበኣር ንዓይ ንደቂ ኣንስትዮ ጥራይ ትምልከት ኣይኮን እቶም ደቂ ተባዕትዮ ካብ ሓዳር ወፃኢ ምስ ካልእ ጓል ኣንስተይቲ ክዝሙ ክፍትኑ ከለዉ ኸ ንዓይ ይብሉ ኣለዉ ዶ ወላ ይብሉ እንታይ መልስናትካ ንዑ ኢላቶ ኦፍኮርስ ብዛዕባ ሓዳር ክንዛረብ ከለና ነፍሲ ወከፍ ሓላፍነቱ ክፈልጥ ክኽእል ኣለዎ ከም ወዲ ትራዲሽናል ወይ ካብ ትባህሊ ናይቲ ወዲ ተራ እንታይ እዩ ኩሉ ነገር ነቲ ገዛ ምእላይ ሓዳር ምእላይ ኩሉ ቢልስ ምኽፋል ኩሉ ዘድሊ ነገር የማላ ኣሎ ዶ የማልን ነቲ ሓላፍነቱ ሙሉእ ብሙሉእ እንተማልዩ ፅቡቅ ኣሎ እታ ጓል ኣንስተይቲ ድማ ከምኡ ኣብ ገዛ ሰፖርት ትገብሮ ዶ ወላ 10 ግዜ ቋየቋን ሽግርን ኣርሳት እናገበረት ካብዚ ገዛስ እንደገደገ ክጠፊ እየ ከም ዝብል ትገብረላ ስለዚ እዚ እውን ክንሪኦ ኣለና ዝብል መልሲ ይብሎ ብሓፈሻ ግን
start nagging his ear off. He's like, damn, I don't want to be here. Let me go back to the streets. You know, have you done your job also on that end? And if you have, then a lot of the stuff on the outside becomes superfluous. And I would say, you guys talk about this, you like infidelity, the worst. You go to a lot of those other countries, that's baked in. That's normal. They already know what time it is.
Yeah.
So we talk about it here like, wow. But over there, it's just like,
Normal.
He takes care of everything, so I'm good.
What if I don't need him to take care of everything? What if I have my own too? Why should I take it?
And that's great. I'm
So እንታይ ኢሎም ብሓፈሻ እዚ ናይ ነፍሲ ወከፍ ሰብ ሓላፍነቱ እንተገይሩ እዚ ናይ ዝሙት ካብ ሓዳር ወፃኢ ዝግበር ዝሙት ምናልባት ንሕና ኣብ ዝነጋኑ ነይ ናብ ምዕራባዊ ዓለም ኣብ ካልኦት ሃገራት ተኸይድካ ግን ኩሉ ሓላፍነቱ ዘማልእ ሰብኣይ ካብ ካልእ ተወሊዱ መብዛሕትኡ ግዜ ክሳብ ክንዱ ኣካቢዶም ኣይርዮን እዮም ይብላ ኣሎ ብሓፈሻ እዚኣ ርእሲ እዚኣ ከከም ባህሉ ኣበይ ባህሊ ሪፈር ገይሩ ይዛረብ ኣሎ I don't know ብሓፈሻ ግን ካብ ጥንቲ ኣብ መብዛሕትኡ ባህሊ እውን ንርዮ ይሓቅ ንምዝራብ ወላ ኣብ ኤርትራ እውን ብዙሓት ሰባት ሰብኣይሲ ካብ ካልኦት ዝወልድሲ ብዙሕ ግዜ ይዝርያ ኣብ ኤርትራ እውን ብሓፈሻ ግን እንታይ ዝብል ዘሎ እዚ ነገራት እዚ ኣብ ካልኦት ሃገራቶም ሓዳር ነዊሕ ዘለዎም ኣረዳድኦም ካብ ኣብዚ ምዕብል ዘለና ነንበይንና እዩ እንታይ ኢላ ተወሳኺ ምናልባት እቲ ቀደም ወዝ ስለ ዝገብረላ ገለ ስለ ዝኸፍል ስለ ዝእቱ ሎሚ ባዕለይ ኩሉ ክገብሮ ዝኽእል ተኮይነ እንታይ የድልየኒ እቲ ናቱ ፕሮቪዥን ዝገብረለይ ገዛ ናይ ገለመለ ባዕለይ ክገብሮ ዝኽእል ተኮይነ እንታይ ክገብር እየ ምስከምኡ ተፃዊረ ዝኸይድ ኢላ ኣላ
I'm mad at you. Go for that. But guess what? In America and in North America in general, women are the ones who are dying alone more than ever. So we can say this stuff and say, I'm going to take it. Go ahead. No one's going to stop you from making your choices. But then also don't complain when you hit late 40s or whatever, you don't find somebody. And I'm like, listen, have you guys been settling on the shit that doesn't matter? And they say, no, I'll never settle. Yep. You know, there was a study that came out, bro. And the study said, I think it polled like 300 women, 300 men. And it asked the 300 women, if you asked the 300 men, it said, if you had 80% of what you wanted from a wife, would you take her? And guys were like, fuck yeah, that's amazing. Ask the same question to ladies. 80% of what you wanted. They were like, I will never settle. 80% of what you want. That's crazy.
እንታይ ኢሉ ኦኬ ናተይ ኣነ ብገንዘበይ ኩሉ ነገር ኣለኒ ትብል ትኮይንኪ ኖ ፕሮብለም ፅቡቅ ብጣዕሚ ፅቡቅ እንኳ ነፍስኺ ትኽእል ኮይንኪ ግን ክንዝንጓዕ ዘይብልና ብዙሓት ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ከምዝናትኪ ሰትል ኣይገብርነ ካባይ ዝጎድል ካብቲ ናተይ ስታንዳርድ ዝጎድል ኣይደልን እናበላ በይነን ይኣርጋ ኣለዋ እዚ ድማ እናበርትዐ እናቐፀለን ክኸይድ ዝኽእል ተርእዮ እዩ ኢልዋ ኣሎ ብኻላ ዘራርባ ኣብዚ ቀረባ ሓድሽ መፅናዕታዊ ፅሑፍ ዝወፀ ን300 ወዳትን ን300 ዋልድን ሓደ ሕቶታት ቀሪቦምሎም ንሱ ድማ ካብቲ ንስኻ ትደልያ ወይ ካብቲ ንስኹ ትደልዮ ወዲ 80% ዘማልእ 100% ደይኮነ 80% ዘማልእ እንተረኺብካ ታጓል ንስኻ ትደልያ 80% ጥራይ ተማልእ ተኮይና ብተመርዓ ኸያድ ኢሎም ቶም ወዳት ኩሎም መብዛሕቶም እወ ኢሎም ተናዋል ግን ኖ ኣይገብርኒ ብምባል ክሳብ ክንደይ ፒኪ ወይ ዘድልየን ጥራይ ከም ዝጥምታ again ኣብ ምዕራባዊ ሕብረተሰብ ኢና ንዛረብ ዘለና 100% ንሕብረተሰብና ይትንክፍ ማለት ኣይኮነን ግን ካባቶም ክንመሃር ኢለ
There's a bit of a delusion of this idea.
Wow.
Go ahead.
It depends on what's in the 20%. Is it cheating or no?
When it comes to your fertility. So a lot of the times, everything is about career.
I'm like, whoo, that's not a way I want. That's with stuff that we say, because I get it. It sounds great. It might be work out for you. What are we condemning people to when we're saying all this stuff? Because it sounds great in theory. Never settle, go for
Miserable.
And you also are a nurse, correct?
Yeah.
There's most kids. I want to ask you, you were a registered nurse, correct?
Yeah.
Have you seen people die by themselves?
Yes. Too many.
What's
So
that
sad.
like?
Terrible.
እንታይ ኢሉ ሓቲቱ ኣሎ ጓል ነርስ እንዲያ እንታይ ኢልዋ ንስኺ ነርሲኺ ሰባት በይኖም ዝኾነ መጻምድቲ ዘይብሎም ክሞቱ ርኢ ከለኺ ኢልዋ ብዙሓት ብዙሕ ግዜ ኢላቶ እንታይ ከመይ እቲ ኩነታት ተባሂሉ ትገልጽ ኢላቶ ኣዝዩ ሕማቕ ኢላቶ so
Miserable.
And you also have to acknowledge more people are going to be dying alone today than they ever have before, and that's only increasing. So I think there has to be a very sensible discussion about like what are we condemning people to when we're
so እዚ ዝራኽዮ ኩነታት ናኸፈይ ዝኸይ ዘሎ ብዙሕ ሲንግል ሰብ በይኑ ኮይኑ ቅፅል ዝፍትናሎ ስለዚ ከምኡ እናበርትዐ ክኸይድ እዩ ስለዚ ክንረዳዳእ ክንክእል ኣለና እንታይ እቲ ፀገማት ኢልና ክንካታዕ ክእል ኣለና
it sounds great in theory. Never settle, go for what you want, etc., etc. But the alternative for a lot of women is going to it might be work out for you, but 3 other women who heard your advice who probably shouldn't have taken it or might end up dying alone.
With cats and dogs.
And you're not going to be there for them when that happens. So I think we have to be sensible with stuff that we say, because I get it. It sounds great in theory.
እዚ ነገራት እዚ ንዓኺ ክሰርሓል ክኽእል እዩ ኣነ ሰትላይ ገብርኒ ምስቲ ዘለኒ ክሳብ ዝረክብ ክቕፅል እየ ትብል እየ ዘሎ ክስራሕ ኣለኒ ገለ እዚ ንዓኺ ክሰርሓል ክኽእል እዩ ንኩሉ ሰብ ግን ክሰርሓሉ ክኽእል ማለት ኣይኮነን ስለዚ ትንህቦ ምኽሪ ክንጥንቀቕ ክንክእል ኣለና እቲ ሕብረተሰብ ብኸምዚ ክፈርስ ስለ ዝኽእል ዝብል ዓይነት
And
ለበዋይ
look, it might work for you, but for the people who are dying alone, I'm like, whoo, that's not a way I want to die.
So until
there's a biological premise that women have been lied to. A lot of women think that at 19 everything is about career, you know, but when they reach 30 they realize, well, what about family? Family starts to become the most important.
إذا قلت زاربة زلا very important you مبزعت عندك نسي أبزم عربة وعالم عصرت تشعة عدمين كله بزعبة سراح بزعبة كارير بزعبة مويا بزعبة عبيد رايز نقرن سلازي لك أبتي سراحان قال ملي قوايا اللواف ثلاثة أغبطها خلواقن الرياليتي ويكاتي كون النت كابتي زحاسبو وصاي خون مغنياتو دك نسي بتفترن فاميلي ون يدلين يا حضار يدلين قلعو يدليون زي دما تتقم
thing, right? Because you're at a prime of life where from there it starts to become downhill when it comes to your fertility. So a lot of the times women nowadays are told career is the most important thing.
Yes.
That is a lie.
انت تبلا ካብ 30 ነኒዮ ግን ተደቂ ኣንስትዮ ብፍላይ እቲ ኩነታት ናይ ፈርቲሊቲ ወይ ከዓ ናይ ፍርያምነትን ናይ ሙላድን ገለመለን ካብ ነኒዮ ናብ ቆልቆለይ ክኸይድ ዝኽእል ስለዚ እቲ ስራሕ እሱ ጥራዩ ዘድልየክ ካሪየር ጥራዩ ዘድልየክ ዝበልዎን እሱ ሓሶት እዩ ኢላ ኣላ ሓደ ዓብ ክሌም ጌራ ኣላ
Of course, it is a lie because we are biologically wired and men also have their wires, but women are biologically wired to give birth, to bring life, and we are intrinsically interested more in people and men are intrinsically interested more in things. That's why you have
እንታይ ትብላ ኣላ very very scientific ዝኾነ ዘረባ እዚ ደቂ ተባዕትዮን ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ነናቶም ኣብ ሓንጎሎም ነንበይኑ ዓይነት ኣሰራርሓ ባዮሎጂካዊ ወይ ተፈጥራዊ ኣለዎም ደቂ ተባዕትዮ ብተፈጥሮኦም ነገራት ይፈትዉ ነገራት ብኢዶም ዝጭብጦም ዝኽእሉ ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ከዓ ብተፈጥሮን ባዮሎጂካሊ ሰባት ይፈትዋ ስለዚ ኢንተረስት ናትና ነንበይኑ እዩ ኮግኒቲቭሊ ሓንጎልና ብልሕናቱ ተመሳሳሊ እዩ ሓደ ካብቲ ሓደ ኣይበልፅን እዩ እቲ ናትና ኢንተረስት ወይ ከዓ ድሌታት ግን ኣብ ሂወት ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ናይ ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ሰባት ስለ ዝፈትዋ ብዙሓት ነርሳት ብዙሓት መምሃራን ብዙሓት ናይ ሰባት ነገር ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ብብዝሒ ይሰርሖ ደቂ ተባዕትዮ ድማ ነገራት ስለ ዝፈትዉ ኢንጂነራት ኣርክቴክትስ ጌመርስ ኩሉ ዝበይንኻ ዝግበር ምስ ነገራት ዝኸውን ኣብኡ ፎከስ ይገብሩ እዚ ግን እቲ ካብቲ ይበልፅ ማለት ኣይኮነን ትብላላ very very sharp ዝኾነ analysis
more women nurses and more men that are engineers or architects does not mean that cognitively men and women have actually overlapped more in similarities than in differences. So we have differences in interest, but cognitive ability is about the same. So we could say that mentality, we are equal. Interested, like the things that we are interested in, then we are totally different, you know? But women are also more agreeable. Men are not so agreeable.
Yeah.
So women will settle for an average man, as you said. But nowadays, because of this lie that career is the most important, everybody is like, I don't want to settle. I can do the most for me. But realistically, once you reach 30, you start looking everywhere because biologically your clock is ticking and you want to settle and you need to settle and you want a family.
I'm going to say you
እንታይ ትብላላ ብሓፈሻ ወላው ኮነ ንበይና እንትኾና ተንደቂ ኣንስትዮ ካብ 30ታት ዕድመ ክብድ ዝበለ ብድሆየ ይስምዓን ስለዚ ሰትል ክገብራ ሓዳር ክገብራ ወላ ትሕትየን ዝኾነ ወዲ ንኽረኽባ ኣይፀልኣን እየ ኖርማሊ ትፀገም ግን እቲ ሕብረተሰብ እዚ ምዕራባዊ ዓለም ኩሉ ግዜ ሰትል ኣይትግበር ንላዕሊ ገጽ ክጠምተ ኣጆኹ ኣብ ላዕሊ እዩ ዘሎ ዝበለፀ ክትረኽቢ ዝብል ዓይነት ፑሽ ስለ ዘለዎ ሰትል ከይገብራ ንክቕፅላ ይግድደን እዚ ድማ ነተን ደቂ ኣንስትዮ ብዙሓት ኣብ ጌጋ ከውድቐን ዝኽእል እዩ ብምባል ሓደ very very interesting ዝኾነ ኣድቫይስ ወይ ሓደ ኣገዳሲ ዝኾነ ምኽሪ ትህበን ማለት እዩ እታ ቪድዮ ነዋሕ ስለ ዝኾነት ኣነ ከይትነዋሓና ክንገድፋ ኢና ብሓፈሻ እዚኣ ርእሲ ንሪኣ ዘለና ንሕና ካባቶም ክንምሃር ምናልባት ኤግዛክትሊ ንዓና ትገልፅ ኣይኮነትን ኣብ ምዕራባዊ ዓለም ነብር ስለ ዘለና ኣብ ኣሜሪካን ኤውሮፓ ኣብ ብዙሕ ነገራት ንሪዮ ነገራት እዩ ንዓና ድማ ይፀልውና ኣለዉ ንሕና ግን ብዙሕ ፅቡቕ ነገር ነይሩና እዩ ንሳቶም ዝምነይዎ ከም ዝረኣናዮ ማለት እዩ ስለዚ ብኣታቶም ጥራይ ዘይኮነስ ካብቲ ቀደም ዝነበረና እወ ኣብቲ ናይ ቀደም ሕማቕ ነይሩ ፀቕጢ ነይሩ ገለመለ እዚ ይተኣለ ግን እቲ ፅቡቕ ነገር ዝነበረና ሓዳራት ክብሪ ነይርዎ ቀፃልነት ነይርዎ ተፀሚምካ ናይ ምኻድ ሂወትካ ኣብቲ ሂወትካ ጥራይ ፎከስ ጌርካ እዚታት ድማ ክንዕቅቦም ክንዝክሮን ከም ዘለና ኣገዳሲ ዲስካሽን እዩ ከምዚ ዓይነት ዲስካሽንስ እንድሕር ትደልዩ ኮይንኩም ኣብ ሓብሩኒ ኢኹም ኣነ ድማ ከም ፀኣልኩም ክፍትን እየ ነዛ ቪድዮ ላይክ ኣብዋ ናብ ካልኦት ክትባፃሕ ኣብ ካልእ ስራሕ ክሳብ ንራኸብ ድሓን ኩኑ ብለኩም ተፀብቑ ቻው